How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Minus the Gym. I'm Ryan. I've got Dash with me snoozing on the couch right there. And in this video, we're going to take a look at an ancient exercise from India that I personally love, okay? This is called Dand. I believe that's how you pronounce it. I'm not sure. If you're from India, let me know in the comments down below. But here in the West, we call it Hindu push-ups, or as I learned it, dive bomber push-ups. Essentially what you do is you start in a pike or down dog position, and then you swoop down and forward, bringing your head and shoulders in front of your hands, pressing up into a cobra pose, and then reversing the whole movement, returning to that pike position you started with. Now, there is a regression, which I'll show you later in this video, but first I want to go into how this exercise works the entire upper body. So the exercise starts off, like I mentioned, in a pike position or down dog. And just holding that position is going to engage your entire shoulder girdle, right? The deltoids, the upper traps, the rhomboids, pretty much your whole mid and upper back is engaged. But then you're going to start pulling forward from the lats as you lower down into that swooping motion. So you're even engaging the lats a little bit here. And what happens is the entire upper and mid back is engaged, you swoop down, and then as you press up into that front position, into cobra pose, you're engaging the pecs, right? Like especially the lower pecs, the anterior delts and medial delts, and the triceps are really pressing up into that position. So that's the majority of your upper body right there, but let's not forget that the core is engaged, right? Like on any calisthenics exercise or any exercise in general, you should be bracing your core. And I also want to point out that there is spinal extension happening here. You're gently swooping down into spinal extension when you go into cobra like that. And it's always good to work on your spinal mobility. That's just going to help, especially long term. If you do this exercise regularly for like weeks or months, you're definitely going to notice benefits in terms of spinal mobility. So that's another huge benefit that comes with this exercise. Now, a lot of people ask me about breathing for this exercise, and that's a good question. A general rule of thumb in fitness is that you want to exhale on the exertion and then you inhale on the return. That's usually almost always the case, okay? So when you look at this exercise, what that would look like if you do them slow is you would breathe in, you would inhale as you swoop down, exhale as you press up, and then inhale as you start to return, and then exhale as you press up to the pike position. So that's 2 breaths in 1 rep, right? So if you're going slow, you might want to do that. If you're doing these fast, then what I personally do is I exhale as I swoop down and forward, and then inhale as I return to the starting position. I've done it either way. I've done the 2-breath method and the single breath method. They both work. But again, this is a complex movement, and there's really like 2 eccentrics and 2 concentrics throughout the whole thing. So that's why if you do them slow, 2 breaths is probably the better method. But if you're doing them fast, then 1 breath exhale and then inhale on the return. Okay, now I did talk about a regression, which I'll show you, and I have a full tutorial for you. All right, so the regression is, and this is the standard Hindu push-ups as I learned them, is basically you're going to do the first part of this. You're going to swoop down and forward, and then what you do is you just pike your hips up and return to the starting position. So you swoop down, forward, and instead of reversing it, you pike up and just press back to the start. That's a great variation. It's easier than the dive bomber variation that I've been demonstrating so far in this video. But just understand that that lack of the reverse is taking out a lot of the, well, like the whole second half of the movement, right? Like the concentric of the pike push-up, that pressing back up into the pike isn't there when you just sort of raise your hips up and return to the start. So that's a regression. You can work on that as long as you need to, and then eventually you will build the strength. You'll be a little sloppy at first, but you'll have the strength to start reversing the whole movement and going back, doing the full dive bomber variation, and I recommend working up to that as your final goal. All right, hopefully you see all the benefits to this exercise and why I recommend it so much. Let me know in the comments if you're already using it or if you plan on incorporating these into your routine now. And like I mentioned, I have a full tutorial right here. Click on that video. That's an oldie but a goodie here on the channel. It's my full dive bomber push-up tutorial. All right, I call them dive bombers because that's what I was told when I first learned them. But yeah, Dand, Hindu push-ups, dive bombers, whatever you want to call them. I hope you start using them, hope you like them, and I'll see you in the next video. Talk to you then.